Indeed. And I think what's really important about this, and forgive the pun, is an aerial perspective. Because exactly as you say, and the commentator before indicated, this hit in an area where there are 16,000 people, I say, beg your pardon, 16,000 homes. So this is a residential and an industrial area. The entire network in terms of energy system for industry, for residential has been impacted, even though much of the focus of the story is very much on Heathrow and passengers. What we also need to take into account is over and above passenger traffic, over 4,000 tons of cargo go through Heathrow every single day. So the implications are very wide. But what's very important is that the global aviation network is extremely tightly connected. And so at the first signs of trouble, when we saw the fire starting late last night, there would have already been activation of the Emergency Operations Centre at Heathrow to notify not only other airports in the UK, but also internationally, that there's going to be need to keep a very close eye on this to explore the implications of passengers in the air already, passengers about to take off, and passengers about to land. So it's very important to recognize the entire ecosystem and how it's being addressed in terms of resolving the problem, which thankfully we know, hopefully, will only last until midnight this evening.
Anita, how do we think about resilience at Heathrow? The fact that the backup generator also impacted by a fire. It feels like over the years there are very snap incidents that happen. And again, we keep asking the question what the resilience is. So how do you think about this story in that context?
This story fits into many others in terms of looking at the global growth of aviation is massive. It is extreme in terms of how it has grown far beyond even 2019 rates. So the industry has recovered, aviation, business travel, leisure travel, and trade as well. So we see from a resilience point of view, whether it is the outage and the substation fire, the backup generator going down, it could be severe weather incidents, it could be geopolitics. The growth of the industry is happening faster than the growth of infrastructure. So if anything, this is putting a spotlight on the need to make sure that the entire network of energy supply for any network around the world, at any airport around the world, has sufficient capability to address a crisis with a backup plan and, again, a backup global network that's ready to assist. Because ultimately, when it comes to aviation, priority number one is safety. And that's why even the airlines that sadly were returned back to their starting point, you'd rather be on the ground than stuck in the air or relocated somewhere else and needing to get to your end destination. So all of this is a very dramatic learning curve. And that's why what's important is allowing leadership in the operation systems to mobilize, allowing them to work through established emergency responses. And as frustrating as it is for travelers around the world, being patient, waiting for communication,
Right.
following airlines.
When it comes to the impact on the airlines, we're seeing a downturn in some of the key airline stocks directly affected today. I imagine investors are pricing in the compensation that some of these airlines are going to have to provide to customers. Can you give us any sense of the magnitude of the impact for a disruption like this on the airlines when it comes to compensating those affected passengers?
The official compensation will depend a lot of the terms of the airlines because this is an extraordinary event, very much like as we've seen with some of the extreme weather. What's important, though, is that this is when compassion takes over as well. So leadership of the airlines, those involved in customer services, are going to want to make sure that their passengers are taken care of. Do they have food and beverage that they require? Do they require accommodation? What backup support is required in terms of transport? Whether it's another aircraft or it's using land transport. So all of these compassion solutions need to be factored in at the cost. But when it comes to the airlines, this ultimately is their commitment to travelers. So absolutely, investors will look at not only what the cost is of this in terms of the financial cost in the short term, but look at how the airlines have actually managed their care for their customers, because that ultimately is going to be the basis of customer retention, which from an investor point of view is going to be very important to protect the asset value. So again, it's a significant calculation.